If I told you that invisible chemicals running through your body right now are deciding your mood, your energy, your sleep, your weight, and even how well you handle stress, you'd probably say, yeah, I've felt that. But what if nobody ever actually explained what those chemicals are, what they do, and why they go wrong? That's exactly what we're doing today. We're breaking down every major female hormone, what it does when it's working correctly, what happens when it goes wrong, and why your body feels like a completely different person depending on the day. No jargon, no medical degree required, just the stuff you actually needed someone to explain years ago. Estrogen. Estrogen is the headliner. It's the hormone most people associate with being female, but calling it just a female hormone is like calling the internet just emails. It does way more than that. Estrogen controls your menstrual cycle. It thickens the uterine lining every month, preparing it for a possible pregnancy. But it also shapes bone density, skin elasticity, brain function, cardiovascular health, and yes, mood. When estrogen is at the right level, you feel sharp, energized, social, your skin looks good, you sleep well, your joints don't ache. Too little estrogen, which happens naturally during perimenopause and menopause, and suddenly you're dealing with hot flashes, brain fog, dry skin, mood swings, and a libido that quietly packed its bags. Too much estrogen, a condition called estrogen dominance, and you get heavy, painful periods, bloating, breast tenderness, anxiety, and weight gain that doesn't respond to diet or exercise. Sound familiar to anyone? Here's something most people don't know. Estrogen affects your memory. In the 2 weeks before your period, when estrogen drops, you might notice your words are harder to find and your focus shorter. That's not in your head. Well, it is, literally. It's estrogen leaving your brain. But estrogen never works alone. It has a partner, and their relationship is complicated. Progesterone. Progesterone rises in the second half of your cycle, after ovulation. Its job is to prepare the uterine lining for a potential embryo, and if there's no pregnancy, to let that lining go, which is your period. But progesterone does something else most people never hear about. It's calming. It works on the same receptors in the brain as natural sedatives. It promotes sleep, reduces anxiety, and counterbalances the stimulating effects of estrogen. When progesterone is low, which is extremely common and often goes undiagnosed, you don't just have period problems, you feel wired and tired at the same time. You can't fall asleep or stay asleep. Your anxiety spikes in the week before your period. You feel like you're running on empty but can't switch off. Low progesterone is one of the most common hormonal imbalances in women in their 30s and 40s, and it's frequently dismissed as stress or anxiety. Progesterone is sometimes called the forgotten hormone because it rarely gets its own commercial, but it might be the hormone most responsible for how you feel in the second half of every single month. Now, both estrogen and progesterone have a secret enemy, that one that doesn't care about your cycle at all: cortisol. Cortisol is your stress hormone. It's produced by the adrenal glands, and it's not inherently bad. In fact, you need it. In the morning, cortisol rises to wake you up. In a dangerous situation, it floods your system to help you react fast. The problem is that your body can't tell the difference between being chased by a predator and being chased by a deadline. Stress is stress, and chronic stress means chronic cortisol. High cortisol over time suppresses progesterone. It disrupts the menstrual cycle, it increases belly fat, it spikes blood sugar, it wrecks sleep, it raises blood pressure, and because it's so connected to everything else, when cortisol is dysregulated, almost every other hormone suffers. There's even a name for it, the cortisol steal. When your body is under too much stress, it reroutes the raw material used to make sex hormones, like progesterone, and makes more cortisol instead. Your cycle gets shorter, longer, or disappears entirely. Cortisol peaks at 8 a.m. in a healthy body. If you wake up already feeling exhausted or anxious before the day even starts, your cortisol rhythm might be inverted. Your body is essentially running its emergency alarm at the wrong time. And cortisol has a close friend who also loves to cause chaos, especially if you have PCOS. Insulin. Insulin is produced by the pancreas, and its job is to move glucose from your blood into your cells so they can use it for energy. Every time you eat, insulin rises. That's completely normal. But when you eat a lot of processed foods, refined sugar, or simply eat too frequently, insulin stays elevated. And elevated insulin is a hormone disruptor that almost nobody talks about in the context of female health. High insulin tells the ovaries to produce more testosterone. In women, that means acne, excess facial or body hair, irregular cycles, and weight that concentrates around the abdomen. This is exactly what happens in polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS, which affects roughly 1 in 10 women. Insulin resistance also interferes with ovulation. If your cells stop responding to insulin properly, your ovaries can develop small cysts, not dangerous on their own, but a sign that the whole hormonal system is under strain. Speaking of testosterone, let's talk about the hormone women aren't supposed to have, except they absolutely do. Testosterone. Yes, women have testosterone in smaller amounts than men, but it's present and it matters. Testosterone in women supports libido, energy, muscle tone, confidence, and bone strength. When it's balanced, you feel motivated, strong, and interested in life. When it's too low, which happens gradually from your late 20s onward, you feel flat, not depressed exactly, just dulled. Too little testosterone and you lose your drive, physical and otherwise. Too much, usually driven by insulin resistance or PCOS, and you get the opposite problem: acne along the jawline, hair thinning at the scalp, unwanted hair growth elsewhere, and a more aggressive stress response. What's interesting is that testosterone in women is often only measured when something is obviously wrong. Routine panel blood saps frequently skip it. So many women are walking around with out-of-range testosterone in either direction and have no idea. Testosterone peaks in the middle of your menstrual cycle, right around ovulation. That's not a coincidence. Evolution arranged it so that the moment you're most fertile, you're also at your most confident and most attracted to others. None of this works right if the master controller is broken, and for millions of women, it is. T3/T4, thyroid. Your thyroid gland sits at the base of your throat and produces two main hormones, T3 and T4. Together, they regulate your metabolism, how fast or slow every cell in your body operates. Think of thyroid hormones as the thermostat for your entire system. They affect heart rate, body temperature, digestion, weight, mood, energy, hair growth, and even how quickly you think. Hypothyroidism, an underactive thyroid, is 8 times more common in women than in men, and the symptoms are so broad they're frequently misdiagnosed as depression, burnout, or just getting older. Weight gain that won't budge, fatigue, brain fog, constipation, dry skin, hair loss, feeling cold all the time, and a general slowing of everything. Hyperthyroidism, an overactive thyroid, does the opposite. Heart palpitations, anxiety, unexplained weight loss, insomnia, and feeling overheated constantly. Standard thyroid panels often only check TSH, the signal the brain sends to the thyroid. But TSH being normal doesn't mean T3 and T4 are converting properly. Many women with every symptom of hypothyroidism are told their thyroid is fine because nobody checked the actual hormones. One more hormone that works quietly in the background until you really need it and it's not there. DHEA. DHEA is produced by the adrenal glands and serves as the raw material for both estrogen and testosterone. It's the precursor. Without enough DHEA, your body doesn't have what it needs to make the sex hormones it needs. DHEA also supports immune function, energy, mood, and the ability to handle stress. It peaks in your mid-20s and declines steadily from there. By menopause, levels are a fraction of what they were. Low DHEA is associated with fatigue that doesn't improve with sleep, low mood, poor immune function, reduced libido, and difficulty recovering from stress. Because it sits upstream of other hormones, a deficiency here can create a cascade of imbalances further down. Somebody has to make the raw material for sex hormones, and DHEA is the daily supply. And then there's the hormone responsible for the most powerful bond in human experience: oxytocin. Oxytocin is released during physical touch, intimacy, childbirth, breastfeeding, and deep social connection. It's called the bonding hormone for a reason. It creates feelings of trust, safety, and attachment. But oxytocin also counteracts cortisol. Physical affection, a hug, a hand on your back, activates oxytocin and lowers stress hormones within minutes. Your nervous system is literally designed so that connection is a stress management tool.
Chronic isolation, disconnection, or a lack of safe touch suppresses oxytocin. This makes the stress response harder to regulate. It makes social situations feel more threatening. It creates a feedback loop where stress causes isolation and isolation increases stress. Oxytocin doesn't get tested. You can't supplement it directly, but you can activate it. And understanding that gives you a real physiological reason to prioritize connection. And finally, the hormone that decides whether you can access any of this at night. Melatonin. Melatonin is produced by the pineal gland in response to darkness. As light fades in the evening, melatonin rises, body temperature drops, and your brain signals that it's time to sleep. It's not a sedative, it's a timing signal. Melatonin also has antioxidant properties and plays a role in regulating the immune system. And here's the connection most people miss. Melatonin has a relationship with the reproductive hormones. Low melatonin is associated with irregular cycles and reduced fertility. Screens, artificial light, and late nights suppress melatonin production. Your body can't tell the difference between sunset and a phone screen. The blue light frequency signals daytime, and melatonin stays low. And because sleep is when your body does most of its hormonal repair work, when growth hormone is released, when cortisol resets, when the whole endocrine system rebalances, chronically poor sleep doesn't just make you tired, it actively disrupts every hormone on this list. Melatonin production begins declining in your mid-40s. This is part of why sleep becomes harder during perimenopause. It's not just estrogen and progesterone. The sleep architecture itself starts to shift. So that's 10 hormones, 10 systems, 10 reasons why you feel the way you feel.